S.S.S. Mikeitz, Tufshin, Pei Daled. Tonight is Zois Chanukah, the last night of Chanukah. S.S.S. Mikeitz this year is not Shabbos Chanukah, but I heard over this week they say from Tzaddikim that when Chanukah ends on a Friday night, when the Friday is the last day of Chanukah, and you go straight into Shabbos, so the Kedusha and the Hashpois and everything from Chanukah lasts another day. It goes through Shabbos, because how is it possible that Shabbos should come and we should lose some Kedusha, that some Kedusha should go away? So everybody should know that this week, this Shabbos is like another day of Chanukah. And like we always say, you want to make sure to come out on the other side of Chanukah. You want to make sure to come out inspired with something that's going to change you. And on this Shabbos Kodesh, this Shabbos where Chanukah ends right before Shabbos, we have the opportunity to take it an extra day and put together the Chanukah going out and Shabbos Kodesh coming in. It gives us this tremendous, tremendous uplifting hashpah for every single person. And that's what tzaddikim say, is like an extra day of Chanukah, extra credit, a bonus day. And I actually heard over today, before I get into the Aushir that we wanted to say here tonight, I heard from my friend, my good friend, Reb Simcha Hachbaum from Hebron, sent me a shir today that he said over, and he said it's based on a Nesivos Shalom that we see in this week's Parsha, that Yosef, when he interpreted the dream of Paroi, so the whole theme of the dream was that there's going to be 7 years of plenty, but during those 7 years of plenty, you have to put away. Because you know that there's going to be days that 7 years are coming where you're going to forget there was even food. There's not going to be any food in Mitzrayim, so you have to put away for the times that are not so good, for the times that are a little bit dark. And that's a lesson of Chanukah, is that we go through now a beautiful, uplifting, warm, inspiring Yontiv of Chanukah, but we know that there's a cold winter ahead. The long nights in Teves, at least if you're in the northern hemisphere, they have the long nights of Teves, and every person has in their lives, every person has the times that it's a little bit dark. So on Chanukah now, when we're in the last day in Zois Chanukah, which is a tremendous day, you have to remember to pack away all the things that we're gaining and how we're growing from Chanukah, and let's put it away, as Yosef recommended, put it away for those days when you need to pull out that Kedusha, when you need to pull out those Madregas. So a beautiful word. And I thank all the way to Hebron for this beautiful idea. And the Medrash Rabbah, the beginning of our Parsha, talks about Yosef and quotes the following pasuk. The pasuk says, Ashrei HaGever Asher Som Hashem Mivtachoi. Praiseworthy is the person that places his trust in Hashem. And the Medrash Rabbah says, Zeh Yosef. This is Yosef. Yosef, the quintessential Baal B'tochain. That's Yosef. And then the rest of the pasuk is V'loifon el Ra'avim. Says the Medrash, it's also talking about Yosef. That Yosef, who the Medrash tells us, and we know that Yosef put his trust at some time in some way, he put it in the Sarah Mashkim, and he asked him to remember him, to get him out of jail, and because of that, Yosef had to be in jail for an extra 2 years. So the beginning of the pasuk, Ashrei HaGever Asher Som Hashem Mivtachoi, that's Yosef. And the end of the pasuk also about someone who puts his trust in someone other than Hashem. It is also talking about Yosef. And Yosef relied, we know, on the Sarah Mashkim, and he had to stay in jail the extra 2 years. So the famous question that everybody asks on this Medrash, the question is very obvious. First, we're saying Ashrei HaGever. You want to know who's a person who's the biggest Baal B'tochain? That's Yosef. And then in the same pasuk, we're saying that Yosef was punished because he put his trust in a human being. So how can that be? How does that add up? What was Yosef? Was Yosef this? Or was he that? Did Yosef have B'tochain? Or did he not have B'tochain? So Nesivos Shalom brings from the Divrei Shmuel, and he says, in the name of the Rav HaKodesh Mivitebsk, Zchusa Yogan Aleinu, it says a very, very beautiful thought. And he says that we need to understand who Yosef was. Let's understand for a moment who we're talking about. You know, sometimes people, you go through things, you need a Yeshua. A person needs a Yeshua, he needs to be rescued from something, he needs to be helped with something. And Hashem sends a person a derech of hishtadlus to get out of that situation. Hashem sends you a lifeline. So we know that if Hashem sends you a derech and he sends you a lifeline, a way to do hishtadlus, you're mechuyev to do that hishtadlus. You have to do it. You have to take advantage and use it. That's a regular person. But for Yosef, says the Divrei Shmuel, but for Yosef, even saying to the Sarah Mashkim to remember him was considered a fault. For a regular person, Sarah Mashkim standing there, he's going to Paroi, so you're mechuyev to do hishtadlus. You have to ask. But for Yosef, he was on such a high madrega, that even mentioning anything to the Sarah Mashkim was considered a fault for Yosef. Not for a regular person, but for Yosef it was a fault. And this is what the Medrash is telling us. Now we can understand the Medrash. Ashrei HaGever asher som Hashem mivtachoi. Praiseworthy is the person who puts his trust in Hashem. That's Yosef. What? Because he was the absolute shleimus in bitachon. We're telling you about Yosef, because that's what Yosef was. He was that big in bitachon. And the rest of the pasuk tells us that because Yosef was on such a high madrega of bitachon, then v'loifana el rahavim, that for Yosef that was considered a fault. For a regular person, maybe not. The Medrash continues and tells us that v'loifana el rahavim, because for Yosef, even doing that much, his shtadlus was not for him. It's a beautiful Maisa they say about the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. We know the Baal Shem Tov, before he became the famous Baal Shem Tov used to travel around. He would wander from city to city, and he would go from town to town, just being a regular person. This was before he was famous as the Baal Shem that we know today. And they say that one Shabbos, he was traveling from town to town. He had absolutely no funds. He had no money at all for Tzarchei Shabbos. He had nothing to make Shabbos. So the Baal Shem Tov walks up to the house of a rich person in the town, and he knocks on the door, and he walks away. He knocks on the door, and he leaves. The Yid comes out the door, he opens the door, and he sees that there's a Yid who's running away, he's walking away. So he chased him down. And he said, 1 second, if you came to my house, you knocked on the door, it must mean that you need something. What kind of business? You playing some kind of game here? You knock on the door, you're trying to be kids who run around townhouses, right? Knock on the door and run away. Doesn't work that way. Why'd you knock on the door? You must have needed something. Why'd you just walk away before I could open the door? And the Baal Shem Tov answered a very, very important lesson. And he says, Hashem decides how much every person is going to have. How much you're going to have in your life, how much food, how much money, how much this, how much happiness. Hashem decides everything. And really, once Hashem makes a decision that you're supposed to have, let's say, whatever amount of food for the week or for Shabbos, technically, you should walk out your front door and it should be sitting there, like mun. It should be sitting there It should be sitting there on your front doorstep. And it should be right. Hashem decided it's for you. It should be there. But why is it that way? If, like every person, you're lacking a little bit in some way, you're not the perfect tzaddik, so there needs to be some hishtadlus. Because we're not on the madrega, that everything should be dropped right on our front doorstep, then we have to make some sort of hishtadlus, some sort of work, and take steps to make an effort to get that which Hashem decided is for us. And the Baal Shem said, for some people, just knocking on the door is enough. For some people, that's what you have to do. Others may need to wait for you. He tells the person, other people might need to wait for you to actually open the door too. He says, for me, I knew, he says, that Hashem needed me to do the smallest hishtadlus. He needed me to knock on the door. And I was just thinking, you see, that the Baal Shem Tov knew exactly what he was talking about. Because he knocked on the door, he walked away, and the person came chasing after him to give him the food. So you see, that's the hishtadlus he had to make. That's all he had to do. He knew, he said, I just had to knock on the door. And we know the way bitachon works, and this is stam, it's kedai for every person to know. You learn through the Shar Bitachon and Chayvis Alvavos. You learn through the Sifrei Bitachon from the Beis Halevi. I saw recently, many times, you learn through that sefer, the one lesson that jumps out at you about bitachon is that the more bitachon a person has, the less hishtadlus you need to do. If Hashem sees, the more you rely totally on Hashem, and you realize that nobody, no person, no boss, no family member, nobody is able to do anything for you or to you without Hashem deciding that it should be that way, the more bitachon you have, Hashem sees, oh, he's relying on me, I have to take care of him. If you start thinking that you could take care of it yourself, or that someone else is going to take care of you, Hashem Kaviyachol takes a little bit of a backseat and says, oh, listen, you have better ideas? I'll let you take care of it. Right? And it never works out as well as when Hashem does it himself. When Hashem takes care of it. And the ultimate Yeshua that a person will see, the ultimate Yeshua for a person is when a person has complete bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you understand that every single thing that you have, every single thing that you do comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what we're saying in our Parsha. That Yosef was on that madrega. That Ashrei HaGever, Yosef, we're telling you why it was a problem that Yosef spoke to the Sarah Mashkim. For most of us, we're not on the madrega where we're totally there, and we're not on the madrega where we should not be doing any ishtadlas. We need to do some ishtadlas. But Yosef was on such a high madrega. Yosef, for him, it was also, he couldn't ask the Sarah Mashkim to save him. He couldn't ask the Sarah Mashkim to do anything for him, because it was a chisaron in his bitachon. And that's also a lesson that we need to take out of Chanukah. Chanukah is the lesson of emunah and bitachon. The entire yontif of Chanukah, and now we're in Zois Chanukah, tremendous day, and Zois Chanukah goes on, right? Like we said, for an extra day, and it's the same in Chutz La'aretz, in Eretz Yisrael, right? We both have. Everybody has 8 days of Hanukkah, but the 8th day of Hanukkah now will give you a little bit more time to pack away for those times when bitachon might be a little bit hard, when it might be a little tough times. Everybody goes through it. So we say, pack in, build up on the emunah and bitachon and understand, and you'll see for yourself. The more you rely on Hashem, you say Hashem's going to take care of it. If you really train yourself to mean that, then Hashem will take care of it. That's the way it goes. It's a fact. When you say that that people, nobody is anything, ein oid milvadai, it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it comes to you. And that's the lesson that we're learning from Yosef. We should talk about Bizoicha, to take Chanukah with us. It goes by so quickly. Take it with us throughout the whole year. It'll brighten up our year, and Shataka light up the rest of the year for everyone. Have a wonderful Zois Chanukah and a beautiful Shabbos.